How much do you hate yourself?
A lot.
Like when you're listening back.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, especially if you have a stutter. Like, there's nothing worse than hearing yourself on a fucking podcast going...
Yeah, but at least you're the one editing it.
Oh, fucking... I have my own rhythm now. Like, I know...
Right, you know exactly when...
I know in the waveform, I'm like, that's my like, and that's my,
Well, I edit live. So
You just dragging, you just cutting and
I'm like constantly like editing. So sometimes like if he messes something up, I'm hitting stop. I'm editing right then and just moving on. So like we know like first 10 minutes are good. But there are some times where I can't get my brain working.
Yeah.
Because I'm in edit mode.
And you're juggling everything.
And so I'm just like...
Oh, yeah. And then you have a thought and you're waiting for your turn to speak.
Right.
And then by the time it is your turn to speak, you have no fucking idea what your brilliant point was going to be.
Yeah, or right when he's going to give me a second, there's a pop.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what
the fuck was that?
What was the pop?
They're like, I hear like my dishwasher turn on. I'm like, who the fuck? I told you to run the fucking dishwasher. This is so important. We're making so much money on this. All right,
well,
so
let's just roll it and we'll just go for however long. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
And we'll take a break and maybe go more.
Perfect. Ready? It's story time. Storytime is brought to you by the True Crime Garage podcast. Each week, Nick and the Captain fire the True Crime Garage flying ship filled with beer, great discussion, and listener participation. The garage covers a new case each week, from headline news to local real-life horror stories. Discussions about serial killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and BTK. Cold cases like John Benet Ramsey, O.J. Simpson, alongside the Zodiac Killer, disappearances, missing persons, unsolved mysteries. They're all on tap, along with craft beers from all over the world. If you like to kick back and have a little fun with your true crime, then this show is for you and your friends. Remember, don't take yourself too seriously, because if you do, nobody else will. Check out truecrimegarage.com. That's truecrimegarage.com. Well, this is a special day for story time because I didn't take myself too seriously. And I'm happy to see that that's why we're here today. I'm with the Captain, one of the two co-hosts of the True Crime Garage podcast. The Captain for a number of years now.
Scotty's such a liar. He's been taking himself too serious.
Far too fucking long. That's right.
For a really long time.
And one of the reasons why I have been inspired.
Street Dentistry.
Street Dentistry. Fantastic album.
Best album. I owned it.
He owned it.
I was a fan.
Could have checked it out from the library. It was actually in the library for a while.
No, I got it for free at the studio.
I'm sure you did, because I still have free copies if you'd like to see.
I think you dropped off like 15 to the studio, and I'm like, I'll take 2 of those.
Yep, exactly. So this gentleman right here is the reason why I have a podcast. Thought about it for a long time.
Don't blame me for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely blaming you for my lack of time with my family. Thank you. Well, let's give him a little background. I mean, we crossed paths. We played in separate bands on the same bill. Mm-hmm. We've played in the same band briefly.
You played on bills with some of the guys I play with now.
Yep, exactly.
And you still have flyers from?
I know.
I was like,
in my scrapbook.
I was like, I'm doing a gig with Nathan Witt. You're like, I got a flyer of that.
Fucking A, I played with Nathan Witt. That's crazy. So
it took us 9 years to make his last record.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Check it out on iTunes.
Check it out on iTunes. Plug. Hashtag shout out Nathan Whitman.
I love that.
So you have you're a hell of a bass player. You're a producer. You are working on international stuff. I'm just gonna totally inflate your fucking head here for a second. You have a very hyper successful podcast in the age where everyone wants a hyper successful podcast.
Yeah.
So
we've been very lucky on that part.
Absolutely. Knowing you, I definitely attribute it to luck.
Yeah. There's no skill.
No, I will definitely give you credit. You have
I applied for the broadcasting school.
Did you really?
I didn't make it.
You did? That's bullshit.
You're underqualified.
That's bullshit.
I said, but I thought you guys were here to teach me what to do, and they go, we can't teach. We can't teach stupid.
You're not teachable. No. Yeah. So you're a producer. You produce the show. You do a number of things. Mm-hmm. Without going too far into the standard, like, how'd you get started? The real questions that I'm interested in are like, You ever get like really depressed about talking about horrific fucking murders every week? I mean,
Yeah.
Does it ever like start to seep into like what you do and how you look at stuff?
Well, a couple things have been happening lately. Some odd things. One, I think we've talked about this before, but it probably wasn't until like maybe early 20s that I realized like something was a little off in my brain. But
no shit.
No, but it was just this constant like dark cloud where like kid, like just a happy kid.
Yeah.
Like, because once the dark cloud came over me, it was like, Mom, Dad, was I always like this? And I'm like, no, you're always smiling, you're always happy. And high school, I remember, just loved it. Like, my parents got divorced, didn't really bother me too much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And perfect attendance.
Yeah.
I liked going to school.
Yeah.
And then I got to college and just something, I just didn't feel like a fit in.
Something flipped.
And then it started this whole downward spiral of dark cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I've been struggling with since then and still now. But the show, kind of, there's definitely some weeks where I'm going, oh man, I need to start lifting again more, or
Doing
I need
something
to
healthy. Yeah.
Or like just like last week, I started making sure I was taking all my vitamin supplements, and when do I need to go to sleep, and I need to stop drinking so much.
Yeah.
Because some of these cases, I mean, we've had, I think twice on the show where we had to stop because somebody was tearing up.
Yeah.
We just covered the Casey Anthony case a couple months ago, and Casey Anthony's father went to commit suicide, and he wrote a suicide note. So the co-host Nick read the suicide note.
Oh God.
Well, Nick is he's still pretty young. He's 38. Or he's going to be 38, but he's a grandpa. So he's a pretty young grandpa. But he's reading the suicide note from a grandfather.
From the same perspective, right?
And he's just like halfway through the thing and just gets choked up.
Oh man.
And I wasn't in that headspace. I was having a good day.
See, that's exactly what I'm.
No.
Okay, so on the Vulgar Parenting Podcast, we have the Vulgar Parent of the Week, right? And we get a lot of submissions
For Casey Anthony.
and a lot of them are like, they're just not funny. Like, there's no angle. It's
Right.
like, no, this is just fucking depressing. Like this, it's just sad. Like there is no, angle to take that makes it entertaining. It's
Right.
just straight up depressing. And that's when I thought, I was like, man, Captain's over here, like talking about straight murder,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
some like grisly stuff that like we've had to like kind of pull back and be like, this isn't gonna make the cut.
Right.
We can't talk about this on the air.
Well, and I mean, obviously our show is a true crime show, so that's what we do.
Right. Sure.
And, to get into how we got started on it, we'd always sit around and talk in his garage, in Nick's garage. And then so when we both decided we're going to start a podcast, we're like, okay, well, let's get together and just see if we can do one. But let's pick a overall topic.
Yeah. Are we interesting?
Yeah, and we'd talk for, 2 to 4 hours, just
On the mic, just taping it?
No, just sit in his garage,
Okay.
crack a beer,
Mhm.
just like
Yeah,
me and you would do. We would
Sure.
talk for 2 hours
Sure.
on the phone, no problem.
Easily.
And so, but then it comes down to what topic, because you need to have some kind of a niche.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what he's been fascinated with since he was in elementary school was true crime, and we've always talked about it
Mhm.
on some level. And in a 2-hour conversation or a 3-hour conversation, there's going to be a true crime case brought up.
Mm-hmm.
But when he said, "Oh well, we'll have a true crime podcast," I was like, I mean, I didn't think we'd do more than 2 episodes. So I was like,
and
like,
how many have you done now?
130 something. So maybe 140. I mean,
I don't think this is gonna work.
But the thing was like, I think it was probably the 8th or 9th episode. I mean, I was getting so much hate mail out that. I mean, so you're dealing with your own depression. You're dealing with a divorce.
You're dealing with a negative subject
Yes.
each week, murder, and then you're getting negative.
And then you got people calling you an idiot, and you're going, "Oh, this is great." And so there's been times where I've just told him, like, I'm just, sometimes people go, you didn't talk much on this episode. Well, I might not have known much about the case because I just told him I can't do it this week.
It's too much. It's
this
too
week.
dark.
I'm too much.
Yeah.
And there's probably like 2 or 3 cases that we've covered that probably pop into my brain every other day.
Yeah.
And that's strange.
Yeah, that's...
Or like when somebody says to me,
that's not good.
My kid is 8. I just all of a sudden, like every 8-year-old victim that we covered, I'm recycling their names in my head.
Yeah, see, this is exactly why I couldn't do I could not do your podcast.
But, you know, I grew up with a detective as a father. So,
Really?
You know, I saw him deal with that too.
Yeah.
You know, so that's been interesting because, I mean, he retired when I was in high school, or right when I went into college, he retired. But he never talked about his job. And one day, this is no lie, one day I get home, it's pretty late, all the lights are off. And maybe there's like a candle like flickering or something. And my dad's drunk at the kitchen table, which he never drank around me. I've seen my dad, well, now I've seen him drunk a bunch, but before he
as a kid, he was doing his due diligence and not getting wasted around the kid.
Yeah, and we never, you know, like...
Shout out, Dad.
Yeah. Skipper is his name. Captain and the Skipper.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
No, his real name's Skip. So, well, his nickname is Skip. But if you call him by his real name, he gets so angry. He's like, Gilbert.
Oh yeah,
what a bad name.
Shout out Gilbert.
Yeah, Gilbert.
Kill me for saying that.
He'd be like, no, it's Skip. But no, he's just sitting at the table and he's just like muttering stuff. Like she was stabbed 40 times.
Oh God!
And I saw it all, and this guy killed himself, and I was just like,
God,
what is going on? Have you ever seen what's the movie, The Warrior?
Is that with Mickey Rourke and he's like an old wrestler?
No, oh, that's good. That's a good movie too.
Wait, that's The Wrestler.
That's called No, The Warrior is with Tom Hardy and Nick Nolte.
I love Tom Hardy, but no, I haven't seen it.
And the dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
Dad was an alcoholic, and he's 1,000 days sober. And both of his kids enter this mixed martial arts tournament.
Oh yeah, I did see this. It's a mixed martial arts, and then they have to fight each other at the end.
Yeah, and then Tom Hardy at one point is just like, "You're a loser, you're a bum," you know.
Yeah.
I liked you better when you're drunk. And then he goes to bed, and when he wakes up, his dad's drunk, just screaming shit. And my dad never screamed stuff, but just some of the, you know, I knew about some of the cases because, you know, growing up in a small town just outside of Columbus, you know every case. I mean, so you find out that your buddy's father committed suicide and your dad hasn't been home in 3 days. You start putting together the connections.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what he's doing. He's working on a suicide case because they have to investigate it as if it's not a suicide. And on top of that, he knows the guy.
So now that you've done, you know, 100 and so podcasts, and you've had a chance to sort of take a step back and see the body of work, and now really think about, you know, from your point of view, you have walked in like the footsteps of a detective. How does knowing now what all goes into these cases, do you see your father in a different way than you did before?
No. I mean, I think I understand that it weighs on him more. I mean, he would not watch Jurassic Park when I was a kid. There's blood. He's just like, I'm not time for this. And he never watched detective shows or police shows
because he lived it.
Yeah, and he's just you know, if there was a funny movie on, he always wanted to watch the funny movie. He didn't want to watch the serious movie.
Yeah,
and you know, I became a banker. A lot of our listeners know because I always talk about my old jobs, but I was a banker for a long time, and my dad's super into financing now. So I mean, the majority of my conversations with my father is about finance.
That's
stuff.
Funny. That's funny.
My joke with him, and he'll never hear this show, so I can tell it. But
I hope he does one day. Skip, I hope you're listening, brother.
He's
one
like,
day.
I know. I mean, he'll be on the phone. He'll be on the golf course.
Yeah.
I'm on tee number 9. I'll call you back when I'm done. And I go, okay, good. and I normally drop a financial question right then, and he'll either stay on the phone for another 5-10 minutes, or he'll call you right when he's done. And it's like anything you ask him financial, he's really interested in. But as far as like, you know,
does he listen to the show?
He's listened to a couple of them, but we've gave him a couple case files to look at to see if we're missing something or.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
really fucking cool.
And probably the first 20 episodes, I'd call him and go, "Hey, we've got a missing person," and I'd just run by a bunch of theories.
Yeah.
And
so it's like you have like a resident expert.
Yeah, but the thing is it's like, I think he, you know, once he realized that the show was as much about entertainment, you know, there's an entertainment value.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And once he realized that, then he kind of eased up because he would tell us, you know, because I came up with a couple theories that have never been presented in some of the cases, and he would say, "Well, you need to contact the lead detective and let." And I go,
"No, I don't."
And I go, "Dad, these guys don't want to hear from me."
Yeah, it's a fucking podcast, Dad.
It's just you know, there's an entertainment there. You know, but he's hopeful that maybe we get on a case sometime that we do something. Like we just covered America's Most Wanted, like the top 10 most wanted FBI.
Yeah.
And like 2 days later, one of the guys that we talked about on the list was captured. Now we didn't have anything to do with it, but it's kind of weird that the
cool,
you know, that the universe works that way. Like, gotcha. No, but you know, awesome. We did have a really interesting lead. You probably remember the Brian Schaefer case.
Yep.
Kid that went missing in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. We
had a lead. So what we do a lot of times with these cases, if we follow up with them, is we're looking for unidentified bodies in different states.
Okay.
So there's an unidentified body in Michigan, and this would have been a couple years after Brian went missing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was maybe that he went and left on his own accord, or maybe somebody took him captured, but we have this body that hasn't been identified up in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So not super far proximity. And we contacted the detectives here in Columbus, and then we contacted them up in Michigan, and then eventually we had multiple phone calls with both organizations. Basically, it was ruled out that it was Brian, but they appreciated the effort. Mm-hmm. They did identify the body. Obviously, it wasn't Brian, but so we are doing some stuff like that we're trying to make a difference. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So you've, all these episodes deeper, into it, where, what's next, now that you guys have kind of hit a rhythm, you've got, something, you have, a full body of work to, kind of look back on.
Yeah. I try not to look back too much. I mean, I call them red light cases. When you're sitting on a red light, there'll be a couple cases that pop into your brain that you always think about. There's a lot of people from Columbus that you're out drinking, and there's been multiple times I've been out drinking with people and they bring up Brian Schaefer.
Yeah.
So there's just certain cases that people always, have the question in their head. And, I have a couple of mine that I go back. But as far as going forward, we have a giant list that the listeners have, every week.
Submitted ideas and stuff that they want to hear. Yeah, that's awesome.
And a lot of times, we don't plan things out that far in advance, because what we try to do is, we only have a week to dive into a case as much as possible. So that's not much time. So a lot of the times, we have to find a case that we're really passionate about. And that's hard,
especially after you've gone through so many. Some of them you can probably pick up a case pretty quick and think to yourself, oh, this is good, or nah, this isn't going to hold up. This isn't going to give us enough.
Well, the other thing that's tough too is, we do 2 shows a week, but sometimes you start diving into, there's this really interesting case up in Cleveland that I've been following for about 6 months. And I have a buddy up there that's kind of like an armchair detective, and I call him once a month or so, and we just kind of shoot the shit about that show or that case. We're not going to cover that case till the end of this year, because we know it's going to be at least 4 parts. There's just so much to this case.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult thing too. Is sometimes you dive into a case and you go, okay, well,
It's
there's
actually
too much here.
It's longer than your format, right?
Yeah, or there's maybe not enough here.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens, and so that's kind of difficult. So,
well, I want to switch gears here for a second. Okay.
Off murder.
Yeah, I don't know if I could talk about more murder.
Oh, that's that's the weird thing is, at my buddy was grilling out last week, and one of our mutual friends was like, "Oh, I need to listen to the show," and I go, "Well, are you into that? Is that your thing? Like, is crime your thing?"
Right.
They're like, "No, not really. It depresses me." I'm like,
then you probably shouldn't.
Then don't listen to it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
listen to another show.
Yeah.
Listen to this show.
No, that's right, brother. If you want something completely different,
if you want something that's not depressing,
check out the Vulgar Parenting Podcast
with Scotty Boombox.
All right, so I want to switch gears to I want to give your listeners maybe a little personal side of El Capitan. I'm
the hermit,
but also kind of staying in the vein of what we do here at the Vulgar Parenting Podcast. Everything has a little bit of a parenting spin. I think it probably goes with the age of us now that we're a little long in the tooth.
50.
God damn it, I just turned 39. I mean, that's...
I'm 52.
Shut the fuck up. No, you're not.
I wish I was 52. My lifestyle would make way more sense if I was in my 50s.
It would make a lot more
What does
sense.
this guy do? He just sits at his house all day.
He's hanging out in the garage again.
I like to sit. I got a wooden chair in my garage, and
so happy about it.
The neighbor kids wave at me. Hey, there's the captain.
There he is.
Stay off my yard.
Get off my yard. Yeah. All right, so speaking of kids, I don't know how many of your listeners know this, but for
a lot of them know.
A long period of time, you were a step parent.
Yeah,
and
a legitimate
step parent, like not a long-term boyfriend,
right?
But married. So and I have to give a shout out to my stepfather, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of step parents. It takes a lot.
Yeah.
But so,
it's a whole different thing.
What's it like to, what's it like to be a step parent to someone's kids? I mean, how do you get into that? I mean, it's got to be tough. I mean, I don't know how else to even really lead this off, except that it's hard.
Well, when I was a kid, I babysat a lot, and I think I was always told that I was good with kids. Like, oh, you're good with kids. And so I babysat a lot, and I had a lot of friends that were girls that would babysit, and then when they couldn't babysit, they would call me. So I was kind of used to that whole thing, and but that was when I was like in my happy phase of life.
You were still happy, so you were better equipped to be a step parent, you're saying?
At that point, but then when I met my wife, my ex-wife, but I'll just probably call her my wife. When I met her, I was 25, but before that, I mean, I probably thought more about my regiment, my daily regiments, than most people.
Yeah.
And
so you were ready for that, like, daily scheduled?
No, I wasn't.
No, because you were so far into your own?
No, I didn't work much. I mean, I got to the point in my life that, I mean, and not to be, man, this is going to be like the darkest, most depressing podcast you ever done.
Don't worry, man. After everything you said, I'm just going to put a fucking laugh track in
Yeah.
after it.
It's just me laughing at myself. I say something and no, but I got so depressed for the longest time that once you get to a point where, to me, it kind of, I wasn't dipping down into depression anymore. It's just kind of this low level depression all the time.
Right.
And I didn't want to take any medicine or anything like that. So it really just became like really watching certain things about my life. And I taught lessons. I taught guitar lessons and bass lessons. And I did that like 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, because you make decent money teaching, at the time I was making more than a lot of my other friends, like working real jobs. So then I was like, okay, look, I work like a half day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'll play gigs here and there. And I did some session work and some stuff here and there, but that was never consistent. But all the stuff I was doing was so much fun that, you know, it just didn't stress me out so much. So I didn't have a lot of peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I could do that, I'd be fine. But then I met my wife, and that just, everything changed. It became like in a way I was like playing it safe. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm depressed, but I don't want to kill myself. So this is working.
Right.
And I thought that, like, if I could live the rest of my life like that, I would have been fine.
Okay.
Because I was just never going to dip into, like, really dark depression. But then I meet this lady, and, you know, she has 2 kids.
Yeah.
And
how old were the kids when you guys met?
They just turned 3 and 5.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was 25. So just too young for me to know what to do.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was working, you know, 3 days a week. And so I'd drive there. She was from Indiana.
And you were like gigging and all this other stuff too, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I actually quit gigging at the time. Like right before I met her, I just decided.
Yeah, because 25 is a good year to quit doing music.
Yeah. No, I quit because everything I was doing, I wasn't the main person.
Yeah.
And I was the bass player in a hip hop band. I'd be the, bass player in a.
Is that the Wick?
I played with the Wick.
Yep.
Which was a good Columbus band.
Shut up, the Wick.
There's somebody listening that's like, oh, I know them.
There's
and I
no
played.
one listening.
Well, I played with Ordinary Peoples, which was probably
that was dope.
The bigger one. I did like rock bands and stuff like that, but so it was just, but it was nobody else wanted to put the effort in. Yeah. And you've been there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so,
for sure.
I remember MySpace just got started. I remember telling the band that I was in at the time, hey, like people were just adding you back. Like if you send out 10 requests, you get 10 replies.
Yeah.
All yeses.
Yeah.
So if there's 4 guys in the band and we all do 10 a day, that's 40 people.
Yeah, that will follow your band and listen to your bullshit. Yeah.
Right. And I couldn't get anybody. So I'd do 40 myself.
You don't even care. Why are you doing this?
Right. I do 40 myself. So the
like
numbers.
MP3.com. Do you remember MP3.com?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I got so many good gigs off that.
Well, the crazy thing about MySpace was at first it actually worked.
Oh, it totally worked.
And people were interested, and they're like, oh, you got a band? And they would actually check it out.
Lily Allen got signed off of MySpace. Yeah.
There's a bunch of artists. There was a Tequila. Remember her?
Oh, God.
She's in bad. But anyway, so.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
So at that point in my life, it was just, let me take a step back and why work for other people? Because nobody appreciated it.
Yeah.
So then it was just like, let me focus on teaching. I taught at Capital University at the time. Then I was working on maybe going back to get my degree, but then it was like, boom, meet this girl. And her kids just turned 3 and 5. And at first it was like, well, let's just see if we work.
Sure.
Because you don't want to just, introduce them.
Oh, God, no. No, you have to wait a while, right? Isn't that the rule? There's some rule there.
Well, I think...
you don't want to get involved in the kids' lives unless you're going to be a full-time part
right.
of the kids' lives. You can't be a part-time, like mommy's friend.
Yeah. Or like, this is mommy's friend. Or
this is mommy's new friend.
Oh, yeah, or they call you uncle or something weird. No, but I think it's different for everybody. And I don't think there's some rule. I think the American standard is, wait a while.
Well, sure. But I mean, how did you make it work though?
Well,
because you did make it work for a while, right? You meet this girl, you marry her.
I married her.
You're a straight up stepdad now.
Yeah,
straight up.
I wasn't, but I was technically not a stepdad, like a legit stepdad for that long. Like the marriage part, but we were together for so long. I mean, I think we're engaged for like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But
did they call you dad or did they call you by your name?
Yeah, they just called me by my name.
Okay.
Never dad. They had a dad that was in the picture. I mean, he was young, so he was dumb too.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, my advice to everyone is never married a man in his 20s. That's the dumbest thing you could ever do. Never marry a man in his 20s.
No.
You could even argue that the 30s are still rocky.
Early 30s are definitely rocky. I
Rocky.
think towards the... You start getting your stuff together towards the end, I think.
Ladies, get yourself an older man.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people that there's a big shift once you turn about 28.
I'm really saying that just because you are single and you're an older man.
Right,
I'm really
right.
trying to help you out here.
Find me on Instagram. No, don't do that. No, so I remember I'd go over and she worked third shift. So I'd go over, we'd hang out at night, and then if she had to get her kids in the morning, then when she went to go get her kids, sneak out. So that was like the initial phase. So that way, we didn't have to, we could still hang out and didn't have to meet the kids.
Right.
So then there was a couple times where, because she lived so far away, that I'd drive over, and maybe they had like daycare or whatever, so she'd go pick them, because at the time she worked third shift, so they'd stay at their dad. She'd pick them up in the morning. They'd be there for a little bit, then she'd take them to daycare, and so. But I remember one time, so there became this phase where I would have to hide in the bedroom while she would be like, "Mom, downstairs," and I'd just be hiding in the bedroom.
God, dude, that is the most unhealthy shit I've ever heard.
But we didn't want them to like, because it was so
true.
new.
It is true, because I have hidden plenty of things from my children for the sake of the children. So
Right,
maybe
right,
it's
right.
actually quite
Yeah, and then the thing too was
bona fide.
her ex at the time. He was young, so he's a dick. Every weekend that she was supposed to have free, she never had free because he'd always bail, and then she'd have to watch her kids. So, I just really cared about this person, so I tried to make it work. But I remember one time laying in bed, and the kids were there, but they didn't know I was there, and I hear the older one, which was 5, tell the 3-year-old, like, "Yeah, just pee. And I'm like, what? I hear her downstairs. Yeah, just pee. Nobody will know. And then all of a sudden, the 5-year-old goes, "I can't believe you just did that." And I'm like,
you can't.
"Casey, wake up."
Yeah, you can't do anything about it.
I think your little boy just peed all over the floor.
Oh my god.
So that was like the first time I think I ever heard their voices.
That's
was them
hilarious.
talking about peeing on the floor. And then one day I was in the bedroom. I think I was on the computer, and this door was like somebody was trying to kick in the door, and this little kid busted through the door with this giant head. He had like the biggest head I've ever seen. And it was Alex, who was my youngest stepson, and he just said, he had this real weird voice for a kid. He's like, hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "Hey." That was like the first time I met him. And then after that, it was just like, well, I've already met him, so
I'm
here we go.
around. Here we go.
Yeah. And then like pretty quickly, we had an apartment there, and I had an apartment here for work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, pretty much since they're like 3 and 5, they lived with me.
Yeah.
So
you're married for a while.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. You split up. Are you still in touch with them at all?
No.
How old are they now, you think?
Well, they started school last week. Juniors and a freshman and a junior in high school.
Yeah.
So that's why, I'm 36, but it's like, I don't know. All my buddies that have kids, they're like elementary school.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have high school students. Well, they were junior high at the time, but I drove them to school every day.
Yeah.
They lived with me every day. So,
how hard was that exit? I mean, I've heard you talk about it a couple times, but I mean, mostly about like the relationship. What's it like to no longer parent?
It's the weirdest thing because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think a lot more than I told people.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, if you ever seen That 70s Show,
mm-hmm.
I was like Red. I was like that kind of father. Like, I was just like this grumpy asshole. But it's like, I think they saw the humor in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think they knew that some of it was just this horrible shtick of this 25-year-old that couldn't get his life together.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have to be responsible for these kids. And the thing about them is, they did so much for me in the idea of proving to myself how much I was capable of doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Kids make you grow up. Like I was not that functional of a human as I am now, especially after my second kid. Like you can get away with it a little bit with one kid.
Yeah.
By the time you have a second kid, it's like, no, you gotta like get your shit together. Like I see my daughter as like my lifesaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So,
I mean, I only worked like 12 hours a week until I met them, and then all of a sudden,
boom,
we're putting her through school. That was the plan. Was like, okay, so my wife's going to go through school, and I can make money. So I went from teaching 3 days a week to 4 or 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Started playing 3 to 4 nights a week gigs. I started working at the bank. So it would be nothing to work, 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah. So, everyone says, hindsight is 20/20, right? So now you've been out of it for a while now. For the listeners at home that listen to this god awful podcast for terrible parenting advice, now that hindsight is 20/20, what advice would you give people that are not just raising kids, but that are entering that whole, step parent arena for the first time?
I think it's a very difficult thing, because I think the way to make a marriage work, in my opinion, is that normally the dad meets mom, and they have a relationship and they build a life together, and that's number one. Kids get into the life, and sometimes moms or dads will then put the kids' existence above their own relationship with their spouse, and I think that's a recipe for disaster.
It absolutely is. Yeah, I think that my wife and I, when we split for a little bit, it's definitely it felt to me like that's what happened, and that was at the root of it.
That she was putting the
kids above me.
And, it just can't.
And thus, I was too selfish.
Right.
I couldn't work through it. I couldn't process it. I had to be number one, and I wasn't number one, and I didn't respond well. So I think that point is like spot on.
Yeah. When I also think too, it's like if you're going to discipline your kid, and I'm not talking about smacking their bottom, but you're going to say, hey, you're in trouble, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That the other parent needs to just be quiet. Let the parent say whatever they got to do. So let the other parent say whatever they're going to do. And if you 100% disagree with them, you need to wait
until later.
You
can't show any parenting dissent in front of the kid.
Right. Yeah. You can't. Yeah, you need advice. It's that they're focused. That it's a team. And there's a lot of things especially with like mother-in-laws and father-in-laws. You just always get this attitude that, well, you're not their father. Well,
you probably had to deal with that a lot.
Yeah, but they live with me every day. Like I pay all the bills.
I have a say.
I drive them to school. And not me and my wife drive them to school. I drive them to school.
Yeah.
Because when they lived in Columbus, we wanted them to go a little bit better of schools. I knew people to get them in those schools, but we had to drive them, and normally a lot of that stuff fell on me. But just like little stuff, I mean, making their lunches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you haven't done that hundreds and hundreds of times, you don't really understand what it's like to be a parent.
Yep.
So
the repetition and the rhythm and the schedule and the calendar. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing that totally. I mean, I've long joked that my kids are like, they're my little dream crushers, because everything that you had planned and were working on your own independent timeline, you no longer have an independent timeline anymore.
Yeah, but some of it doesn't make any sense, and those dreams don't make any sense anymore, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Because we bought a house in Indiana, and it was like the most proud thing that I've ever done was own a house.
Yeah.
I never grew up in an apartment, so the fact that my boys, that's the way I viewed them, was my boys grew up in apartments, and occasionally their dad would have a house that somebody gave him or something, but then something's going to screw up, and then he's going to be living somewhere else. But just to say, this is this is our home. Like, this is your home. And like, that's it. And then it was like this real big moment. And I remember a lot of the times too, I think, you know, my wife would, you know, what about your dreams? And everything that I wanted to do, I wanted to write music and make, you know, bass records and stuff. And nobody listens to bass records anyways. But it was just, all I wanted to do was I simplified all my goals. So my goal just became, I wanted to have a website, which costs you what, like $10 a month? And I just wanted to put out enough content, and it was just going to be free.
Yeah.
And if nobody went to the website, who cares? That's just what my goal was. And I think she looked at that as like selling myself short. But it meant more for me to grill out and have dinner on the table when they got home from football or whatever. That meant way more to me than working on some ego thing.
Right.
Because a lot of this stuff is just ego based.
I think, though, that's one of the sort of like, that's one of the things about parenting that a lot of people fail to mention, that it's really one of the benefits is that you, especially for me, I mean, whatever, I've been in this promotion business since I was like 16, right?
The ego business.
Right. So I've been like over 20 years, almost 25 years in the game of promoting myself, right? It's not healthy.
No.
Like,
not at all.
It can be very unhealthy, especially if, you know, like if you do it for so long. And then once I had my kids, it was like, yeah, your ego gets checked real quick. You're no longer number one, and that's okay. It took me a while to learn, obviously.
Well, I actually don't think it's okay. I think your wife should think of you as number one, because without you, there would be no kids.
Mm-hmm.
But that's balance. I think it'd be sitting down and taking the time to say, we do all this stuff for our kids. We got to do stuff for ourselves, but we also have to do stuff together.
Yeah. Nice.
You know?
Nice. All right, well, I'm going to wrap this up, Captain. I can't thank you enough for coming in here.
Well, that was fast.
To the beautiful SHS Audio Department Studios, a.k.a. my basement.
It's nice. It's a great basement.
So tell me is there anything you can share? Like, what's next for the Captain? Like, what do you have on deck?
Well, I'm going to get married.
Bullshit.
Pop out a couple kids.
I don't believe you.
A couple, I'm going to have to call them something. The captain. Or I've always wanted to call my kids Thing 1 and Thing 2.
First mate.
You know, first mate, second mate.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just started doing a bunch more production for film.
Nice.
So that's been my big thing. I just did a bunch of audio edits for the ARIA Awards, which was like the Grammy Awards over in Australia. So that was probably the biggest thing I did, you know, ever. It was horrible pay. But man, it sounds so good.
Nice.
Like, I did the Grammy Awards over in Australia.
That's awesome.
So I don't know what's next. Maybe we'll do a show.
We should do a show. Hey, give them that plug though. Where can they find you?
Let's see. Instagram, you can find, if you just want to look for me, at Captain Fat Hands.
At Captain Fat Hands, one of the finest Instagram handles on the net.
That's the best one. It's just a bunch of post-workout selfies. Because
there you go.
And what else am I going to take pictures of?
You got to sell that face, baby. You're single, so you can't hate you for it.
And that's there's a lot of haters that hated me when they thought I was stupid, and now they hate me when they go.
Good. Just means you're doing something right.
I guess.
You should love them haters.
I guess. Oh, but you know,
that's when we knew we were doing something right. Like Ocean Goes, everyone on like Omni Mix and all the hip hop,
they hated boards
you. Oh fuck yeah, they hated everything.
Yeah, but maybe you just sucked.
No, that's not the issue.
No, it's like OAR, right? That band OAR.
Yeah.
Of a Revolution. Yeah. Nice guys, super great guys, but their early stuff, their music was dog shit.
Sure.
So I mean, yeah, everybody hated on them, but rightfully so, right? Because it was dog shit music. But they wrote better songs. Like, it got better.
I like it. I kind of like the hate now.
You like people hating on you?
Fuck yeah, I do. I kind of revel in it.
I try not to pay attention to it. I realize that
you're like a public figure now.
Yeah, but all that stuff is fictitious. It's just fictitious.
Sure.
It's not actual real life stuff. I mean, if I post a picture and I get 1,000 likes, like nothing changed. Like if I just post a picture and I put down my phone and I don't look and see any likes,
You don't go back for that.
nothing,
for all the gratification.
Nothing changed. It's not
like.
like somebody put $5 in my pocket.
Sometimes it is.
It's not like somebody walked by and goosed me and said good game. Nothing happened.
It's like a digital goose, though.
I think if you let it, but if you let that be an ego boost, then you got to let the hater stuff be a ego downer.
You're looking for that balance. I appreciate that.
I just don't pay attention to it. I don't think it's the best.
You don't have to lie. You do pay attention to it a little bit.
I used to. Well, I don't anymore. But the funny thing now is when if I read somebody saying how hot I am, it like there's no like pulse up.
So you don't have crests or valleys off this stuff anymore?
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think people don't realize is, sometimes somebody will talk a lot of shit about me.
Yeah.
And then like all the listeners jump.
They jump on there.
And they start like, how dare you?
Don't fuck with the cup.
But there are sometimes that I'm like reading the guys like shit talking. Like he's just trying to be over the top. And he's stupid. And he's this. But sometimes it's like, oh, well, that's a good critique there.
It's actually really true.
You know what I mean? Like, that makes a little sense. Maybe I should do that more.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't realize, there has to be a narrator to the show. Our show's narrator is Nick, and I'm producing.
There's always got to be a lead.
But
somebody's got to be alpha.
Well, the funny thing though is if you put us in a room, he's not the alpha of the group.
But he is on the show.
Well, yeah, he just leads the show. But the other thing too is like we talk about the cases so much that when somebody's like, oh well, it's no value to the show. I'm like, well, what you didn't realize was the whole last hour of the show was information that I found or that I thought was important that the other host didn't think was important, and then I had to like say, no, you really need to look at this, and then he's like calls me a day later like, oh man, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
So, there's value being put into the show that they might not necessarily see.
All right, so outside of at Captain Fat Hands on Instagram.
Just anything True Crime Garage, truecrimegarage.com, and then all social media platforms at True Crime Garage.
Nice. Any final shout-outs?
Shout out to my father, Skip.
What's up, Skip?
The skipper.
If you hear this, it'll be a goddamn act of God. Can you say goddamn act of God? I don't think that makes any sense.
I think he can. He the whole time he'll just be going, oh, he's talking about that depression again. That's not real, boy. He loves to tell me it's not real. It's not real.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
That's what sometimes. That's what he told me.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to pull yourself up out of that mud, boy.
My favorite thing was...
Is your father Clint Eastwood? Because apparently I think he sounds like Clint Eastwood.
My dad is he's just such a unique individual. I mean...
He's a detective. It's pretty dope. And then his son's...
Well, here's the thing.
Crime Garage podcast. It's the apple hasn't fallen too far from the tree.
Well, he was either going to be a minister or a cop. And then it was like, well...
I think he chose the right profession.
Yeah, well, he has the stash for the profession. He's like the permanent mustache. He's just like he's
thick.
He's just an oddball guy. Very smart, but very quick to make you think he's not smart.
Yeah.
Like one of those guys, like he doesn't want anybody to think he can do anything because you might make him,
Yeah, right. You don't want to be too good at the job because you get more jobs.
Right. He's like... Oh, he's like, I don't know how to do that. But he's an interesting guy. Just one of those guys where he's like Honest Abe, he just can't tell a lie. Just refuses to tell a lie. Oof. And then that's like inherent in me. Like because of him, like it's like, think about this. Like you ever sitting around and let's say like your son or daughter is just doing something, right? Whatever it is, like fidgeting. Like, what's some like weird characteristic that you do that they do? That they didn't learn from you.
My kid has trouble focusing.
Well, okay.
My boy, for the longest time, I couldn't understand that he always did this sound. Like he always did. Pff.
Right.
Pff. And I said it to my wife. I'm like, what the fuck is he always doing that for? And she's like, are you kidding me? You do that all the time. And then I realized, like, oh my God. I'm like, all the time.
Whatever.
I do that all the time.
Well, my dad crosses his feet at his ankle and he shakes his feet. and he was shaking his feet, and my brothers were on the same like side of the room, both crossed at the ankles, shaking their feet. And I like pointed at them all three, and I was like, "You guys are a bunch of idiots." And then my dad points down to my feet, and I look down,
and you're doing it,
and just doing it again. But so he never said, "Hey, when you cross your legs, cross them at the ankles and
you just pick it up."
But I don't even think you pick it up like consciously. I think it's just something that's built into your body.
Yeah.
And I think whatever's built into his body that makes it uncomfortable for him to lie, I have the same thing. And not everybody in my family has that.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact, but just, I mean, like, you know, I would be like I could never like cheat on somebody because I couldn't.
You couldn't lie about it.
No, I'd like go home immediately and be like, look, we got to have a talk. I messed up.
Well, on that note, ladies, if you want a super depressed, super honest podcast host, come over and rub them feet.
This is the worst sell for any person ever. If you want a guy that was depressed for a bunch of years.
Yes, and now is haunted by his own podcast.
Cries himself to sleep every night.
Oh, I didn't have to share that one, but thank you for really piling on there.
Always checking his closets for murderers.
For new material, yeah. All right, well, Captain, thank you so much. From the True Crime Garage podcast, this has been... It's story time. Thanks, buddy.